Well, good evening, everyone. Hey, this is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres, and welcome to our Wednesday night live chat, winter edition. All right, so here we are in January, all enjoying a wonderful winter. I know I am because it's been quite mild. Actually, it's 28 degrees out right now, which is pretty mild for northern Michigan. So I'm really liking it. So I'm glad everybody could make it. I have had a very action-packed couple of 4 or 5 days. All right. As I told you last week, I was going to be going to the first annual Rogue Food Conference that was being held at Cincinnati Airport. Believe it or not, Cincinnati Airport is in Kentucky. Notice, imagine the panic on our way down there. And I had told all these people that you're going to be going to Ohio. Because imagine Cincinnati Airport being in Kentucky. I thought it would be in Ohio. So turns out it was very close to Ohio. So it didn't really make much difference. And nobody said anything to me, but everybody that I thought should have been there that was part of our group was there. But maybe some people wound up in West Virginia or someplace like that. I don't know. But anyway, we made it. It's really an amazing thing for me to be rubbing elbows with these people. So I got to meet with Joel Salatin again. I've met him several times. I've actually had dinner with him a couple of times. Wasn't just me and him or anything, but I was at a table with a bunch of other people. But I was sitting right next to him at one time, and I did have a pretty intense conversation with him because when I first started getting into this alternative food movement, I had questions that nobody could answer. And so when I had him right next to me, I asked him a couple questions, and I'll share with you one of them. We were talking about industrial agriculture because industrial agriculture really is the antithesis to what we're doing. And our departments, Department of Agriculture and U.S. Department of Agriculture, they are in place to support industrial agriculture and not us. Notice they don't help us very much. And we don't ask them for their help, but they do throw a lot of roadblocks in the way. But what he said to me was that industrial agriculture is on a race to the bottom. And then he backed up what he said there, his exclamation, with some facts and figures and, commentary. And I've never forgot that. And since then, around here where I live, I've seen the effects of factory farming being on a race to a bottom. I've seen family farms that became industrialized fall apart and come to a close. And there's tough times because price of some of these commodities is not moving, and they still have to deal with tough weather and other things. Diesel fuel goes up, insurance goes up, electricity goes up, but the commodity that they sell from around here is not going up. So it's kind of a bad deal. So over the years, it's been 16 years now since I was first exposed to Joel Salatin. And my first exposure was at a small farms conference here in northern Michigan. And I'd never heard of the guy. At the time I met him, I think I've shared this with you before, I was not sure what I was going to do with this 80-acre farm. I had purchased it, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do because I'm not a farmer, Can somebody do something about that dog?
Your dog? Yeah, one moment.
So I was being courted by the hog industry, pork production, and I had thought for a while what I would do is put hog houses at the back of my property. You got to go out this door. At the same time, which, hog houses on the back of my property would have been really ugly and really expensive. I would not be done with the debt on those even at this point. And it turns out that the bottom fell out of that industry and now it's really owned by the Chinese. So it wouldn't have worked out very good. And so I'm very grateful to Joel Salatin. I met him about the same time, and I got his book and I started listening to his philosophy about farming. And it was an eye opener. And here I was, just a fledgling, farmer. And I've listened to him, I've read his books, and I have grown to really have a lot of respect for him and confidence in his direction. So I got to be with him again last Friday night. We had kind of a dinner for the speakers before, and that was really neat. I was with John Moody. I have met him before. That's an up and coming star right there. His presentation Saturday was second to none, except maybe mine, right? And another thing that I got to do that was really neat was Friday night at this dinner, my wife was sitting to my right. A woman was sitting to my left that owns a 400-acre cattle ranch in Hawaii. So a lot of what she had to tell me about Hawaii and farming in Hawaii was different than anything that I've ever heard. And that was real exciting. But she had invested the time and money to come to this Rogue Food Conference and did not want to miss it. And she was able to share with me some of the struggles that she's having in Hawaii, similar to the struggles that other folks have across the country. The Rogue Food Conference was literally a stake in the sand, saying that we are done backing up. And it is time that we are going to organize and we are going to go on the offensive. Why? Because we can, all right? We don't have to break any rules. We know how this works now. And I hope to be able to share a little bit of that with you tonight. Finish my story. My wife was sitting to my right. On the other side of my wife was a man that strangely, I recognized him from someplace. Where have I seen him? And then I heard the name, Thomas Massey, congressman, U.S. congressman from Kentucky. And there he is sitting right there. And I'm looking at him. I can't believe this. So we get to talking to him. Jill's talking to him. What a guy. I don't know how to explain him. I just kind of all over the place. Maybe if he was an old guy, real old guy, you'd say he's a little on the eccentric side, maybe. But he's an engineer trained at MIT, which is my stomping grounds, and just into a lot of things. And so I said, "Aren't you a congressman?" "Yeah, I'm a congressman, but what I'm really into is farming. That's what I'm really into." So that's why he was there. And, we just had a really interesting conversation. And I follow a little bit of politics, what's going on. And I have my favorites and I have my disfavorites. And I said, "So you actually get to meet like Nancy Pelosi, for instance, one of my favorites?" And he says, "Yeah, I get to ride in a elevator with her all the time. Adam Schiff too." I said, "Wow, Nancy Pelosi. What kind of perfume does she wear?" I said. He says, I don't know. But anyway, it was real interesting to hear a guy tell stories to me and Jill about the time that the phone rang. And he says, "You know what? I bet that's President Trump calling on the phone." And sure enough, it was. And he was trying to pressure him into, I don't know, voting on something or something like that. But pretty interesting to talk to a guy that's actually spoken one-on-one with the President of the United States. I haven't yet, but I'm sure that's coming. Oh, anyway, it was a good time. I had a great time. I got totally energized, and I wanted to bring that back with me. And so I did. I made a video yesterday sitting in the greenhouse out there. And last I checked, it had 1.4 thousand views. And then I followed up with it today, and that one had 5 something last I checked it only a couple hours ago.
Your first one,
And
I just posted on YouTube, and the other one will go up tomorrow when my internet's fast enough again.
And you'll put it on the tribe as well?
No, but on this YouTube channel.
On YouTube channel. Okay.
Right. So if people
it should be on YouTube
watchers,
by now.
It'll be the first one's there, the second one will be there tomorrow.
All right. And I got another one to follow it. See, because it set off a train of thought in me, and I think that I'm uniquely qualified to speak about it because I walked that road, you know. And you can walk a rough road, and when you get to the end of that road and let a couple years go by, you can kind of look back and say, okay, well, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and maybe if I had to plot that course again, I would do this and I would not do this. All right. So at the Rogue Food Conference, I was able to communicate some of that and share with people what it's like, you know, because everybody's kind of dreading the knock on the door from the government, and they're going to put you against the wall and shoot you for a glass of raw milk. That doesn't happen, and it's nothing like you think it is. You always think it's going to be worse than it really is. So anyway, I talked about that in the video again today, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about the authority that they have and the authority that we have, where it comes from, and how it can be utilized, how it can be used. And I just kind of like to, at this time, you know, preface a lot of this with, there is no axioms, there is no absolutes. You can say, if I can hit a ball somewhere in between third and second, I should make it to first and get a base hit. But there's all kinds of other things that can happen, you know. The ball can hit a stone, or, you know, the field can be wet. There's all kinds of variables. But so long as you have an idea of what the plan should be, the way it was laid out for us, you can navigate it. When the founders of this country, our forefathers, after we declared our independence from Great Britain, Declaration of Independence was signed, the Constitution was written, they never thought for a second that we would have to put an amendment in the Constitution to protect our food. That was just a given, right? They would probably never have thought that, gee, someday somebody's going to try and limit your ability to catch rainwater. But they do. They never thought that someday somebody's going to require you pay a toll to go across, you know, to travel a road. But they do. And the list goes on and on. You'd never think that you'd need a license to cut someone's hair, but you do. All right. So what this is all about really is an overreaching government that's saying, yeah, you can do all this stuff, but we're going to get in the middle of it. We're going to give you permission to do it because we friggin' say so. That's about how they are. And usually everything they do is at the point of a gun. Ultimately at the point of a gun. So with food, we're dealing with some of the same stuff. Because food is something that we absolutely need. Industrial agriculture has lowered, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but the nutritional value of the food that's available has come down, 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 down. So I said in one of my videos, and I've heard this a million times in the military, if I can deny you of food for 24 hours, I can make you do anything I want. But if I deny you of the nutritional value of that food for a period of time, and your ability to think and move and deal with the rigors put in front of you are decreased. Can we do something with that dog? You know, I can manipulate you, because what this is about is control. This is all about the control of the people. So anyway, that was the conference. I had a really great time. Met some really nice people. I'd like to give a shout out to some people that I met. It's two sisters. Do you have their names available?
Michelle Svensson is the one sister.
Their last name is Svensson. Michelle.
Their page on Facebook is Resistance Chicks.
Okay.
And
Resistance
YouTube,
Chicks. What are their names? Michelle and Leah?
Yeah.
Michelle
Svensson.
and Leah.
Yep.
And I wasn't planning on meeting them, but all of a sudden there they were. And they said, can we do an interview? And I said, sure. And it was really very comfortable. They asked nice questions. They're very fair people. And I think what you all need to realize is the media that we used to trust is not going to talk about these issues. They're not going to talk about this, even though it's very important. Just a second. I had a dog that was being overzealous with me. All right, so now the dog's in the back room. Okay, where was I? Okay, so their handle is the Resistance Chicks, and I would like to invite you to go visit their YouTube channel. And they interviewed Joel and several other people that I saw there. And I've only seen one of the interviews so far, actually, the one that I was in. Had to check that out, but it was really thoroughly enjoyable experience. The whole thing was, and then trying to get out of there Sunday morning, it was almost impossible. We didn't leave until almost 11 o'clock, and we just wanted to get something to eat and split. But you know, so many people wanted to talk, and it was just thoroughly enjoyable. I can tell you this: there's a big move, a lot of passion towards small farms right now, and I think we're in the right neighborhood right here with this call-in and the videos and stuff that we do. And please remember that every one of you is part of the group. And you might say, well, what could I do? You know, I can't make videos like you make. I'm not even farming yet. You can share things. That is a huge force multiplier. Share it with your group of people, and then their people will share it with their group of people. That is huge. Engage in the conversation on here, even if you're just telling me where you're from, how you doing, something like that. It kind of manipulates the algorithm so that, you know, it kind of takes the veil off of what we're talking about. There's a lot of talk on the internet now about things that have to do with just other things other than food, firearms, drugs, human trafficking, all kinds of things, ugly things. Not the firearms are ugly, but and here we are talking about food and food production and preserving our ability to create our own food and share it with who we want. And we get kind of shut down because we talk about the Constitution. The people that kind of control social media, they don't like that talk. So they do kind of close it down. Not good. So to fool the algorithms, it really helps. Super force multiplier. If you can share everything that you see that's related to this, things that you believe in, if you gut check on it and you want to push it along, please do that. It really helps. All right. Resistance Chicks, Michelle and Leah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give them a check out. When you go to their channel, subscribe and like it. That's another thing you got to do. Okay, and I am ready to take questions. We have a question from a gal in Keleva, and it's on my computer, but we'll wait till later because there were people that were putting kids to bed, and so if we take it kind of nearer the end.
Okay, because otherwise she's on here now too.
Is she? Well, there was somebody in the feed that needed to put their kids to bed, so if we could just wait a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I just saw a question from our
Good friend.
questions on Facebook. Can mangas eat raw potatoes?
The answer to that is yes. Now, you want an explanation on that? Raw potatoes. When I first got Mangalitsa, I also got a line on raw potatoes. And I asked the question a little bit around, and people said, oh no, you got to cook them. You got to cook them. But I didn't get that information until I had fed like several truckloads. And so I kept feeding the truckloads. And I noticed at that time, it was wintertime, that they didn't drink any water at all. So the water that was in the potatoes was sustaining them. And that's where I started inquiring about watering in the wintertime. And now I don't water them. They eat snow and they're fine with it. But if you don't have snow, you got to have water, and you got to have it a couple times or once a day at least. So there you go. But potatoes are fine. I've heard the horror stories about cooking them, but I never have. And I even had them outside in the wintertime where they would get as hard as a rock, and the pigs would just crunch them up like it was nothing. And I think they kind of like it. They chew rocks. So yeah. So, and if that's all you had, there's been times when that's all I had to feed them. One of the things that the pig siege taught me was that mangalitsas are super tough. There was a short period of time, maybe a week, when I had no feed. And over on the state land, somebody had gone in there and cut a bunch of white pine down, and they left all the branches. I went over there with my family. We took the branches, loaded them on a trailer, brought them back over here, threw them in with the pigs. They ate them. They ate them. They eat straw. They eat hay. What is it that they don't eat? I don't know. But we never had any kind of problem because of their diet, ever. Is there any more questions?
Oh yeah.
All right. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Yeah. Just kind of a shout out, but if you know of anybody, and I forget who asked that question about mangalitsas in South Alabama, wondering if you know anybody that's got them down that way.
I don't, but you can go on Facebook to the Mangalitsa page, and you should be able to ask that question. And I'm pretty sure that there's somebody down there that has them. If not, come on up. Come on up here to northern Michigan. We'll hook you up. If I don't have I got friends around here that do.
What about Scott Burton? Is a lot closer than here.
Yeah, Scott Burton is in Virginia.
You say it wrong all the time, and now I can't remember. 5 clucks, 2 ducks, or
ducks. See, Scott?
Ducks and clucks.
You got to be careful when you pick a name for your farm. 5 ducks and 3 clucks. The guy's name is Scott Burton. His wife's name is Jen. They're tribe members, so you should be able to find them that way. But they're getting ready to have Mangalitsa babies, and they've already advertised them for sale. So you probably want to check with them. Virginia's pretty closer to Alabama than we are, I think. Okay, hold on. I gotta deposit a dog outside.
They're hot. They keep panting really loud.
I can't listen to that. We're blessed here in the north with a coyote population, and a couple times a month they just sing, and the dogs get real worked up. They run around and they bark out, far away from the house. And that's what was going on when Jill let them in. So they were worked up and they came in here where it's warm. And they're panting now, and makes it hard for me to concentrate. So it's 28 degrees out right now, and it's 78 degrees in here. Our wood stove is getting her done.
Haven said you turned him on to Creedence Clearwater Revival. What's your favorite tune?
Which one? He wants to know which one mine is.
What's your favorite tune?
Senator's Son, I'd say. Yep, Senator's Son. I like to listen to that when I'm on my Huey firing my M60 machine gun. Yeah.
Which you do every day, so.
Once or twice a day.
You and Jim.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, go back to Susan's question.
All right, I'll take Susan. Susan, I didn't know you were there, but welcome to the neighborhood. We're in Marion. Susan is in Kelliva, and we used to know a farm up in Kelliva. Maybe you know him. I won't mention the name, but he's left and gone up to the UP. But I hope you come see us sometime. Do you want to read her whole thing? Because it was pretty impressive, I thought.
I can, unless you have it there.
I'll get it here. If I can find it. Okay, here it is. Hi, Mark and Jill and everyone. So last year I raised 5 mangalitsas, 197 meat chickens, and 25 laying hens. This year I got a 15-month-old Jersey heifer, and next year I am getting a 16-month-old Guernsey heifer. I'm excited for milk production and raising some calves. I'm hoping to do some cow shares after I get established too. So I was thinking of applying for some grants to help cover the cost of getting set up, building fences, shelters, and such. Doing rotational grazing and building up my soil for good pasture land. Also raise up pasture beef cattle too. So I was told, that I could claim my farm expenses on Schedule F of my taxes. That's not my department. I'm going to refer that to Jill. My question is, do I need to file my farm as a business? Do I need a tax ID number? How does that work? So I'm going to refer that to Jill here in a minute, but you asked about applying for grants. Okay, and I was talking to a good friend of mine today, and it pertained to the authority of the state. If you go to get a grant, all right, it will be a grant from the state of Michigan or the United States, the USDA. I would assume that's where you're going to get it from, or NRCS, which is NRCS gets a grant from the federal government, and then they disperse it out. But in either case, in any of these cases, when you apply for this grant, you've just entered yourself into the system. And I would have told you on my own, I would say, go ahead and do it so long as there's no strings attached. But once you apply for it, the strings have automatically attached onto you. And you have given up some of your sovereignty right there. Sovereignty being you're independent of the government. You've given that up because you have entered into a contract with them, okay? Department of Agriculture, USDA, Michigan Department of Agriculture, they are corporations, right? These particular corporations do not have any law enforcement capability. So if you stray from the contract that you make with them, they have to refer it to a law enforcement agency. Usually the state police is who they use. They could use the Department of Natural Resources. But if you have no contract with them, you've made no agreement with them, then you fall under the U.S. Constitution, the Fifth Amendment more specifically. And what you're going to want to do is download the Bill of Rights, look at the Fifth Amendment. You're going to see that your life, liberty, property, which is your process, is protected under due process of law. It doesn't say unless anything, but I'll add on, unless you enter into a contract with some corporation, which that's who they are. You think they're government, but they're a corporation that contracts with your government to do the function that they do. But that's not what they were supposed to do when they started. They were supposed to just track agriculture in the United States in an effort to help the people on the West Coast work with the people on the East Coast, because people on the East Coast can't really check it with people out in California. You guys got too much? Should we do this? So that was the idea. It was supposed to make everything better. But they've way overrun their headlights, and now they create regulation and all kind. They pick winners and losers. They're heavily invested in industrial agriculture, and as we said before, industrial agriculture is making a nosedive these days. So who's responsible? You'd think with all these smart people from Department of Agriculture that industrial agriculture would be just doing great, right? They got all these college educated people to guide them. Yeah, right. See who's got the debt. See who's carrying the most debt. So that's the deal with that. I wouldn't do it. I have done it before I knew better, a long time ago. I took an NRCS grant to do some fencing. I could have done it on my own, but I did. All right. So I don't want you to find out that I'm more of a hypocrite than I really am, but I did do that. But I'm telling you that I wouldn't get in any contracts with any of these organizations if you want to stay independent. The way you're on right now with your meat birds and the mangalitsas and all that stuff, you get them processed, you can sell them to anybody you want. Outside of somebody else who's made a contract with the same entities. So like myself, I have no contracts with any of these entities. If I tried to do business with a restaurant, they always have contracts because they're mostly in town. And they always have contracts with like the health department and Department of Ag. And their contracts specifically state that they can't do business with me as a non-contract holder. But everybody else, I can do business with because they can't stop me from doing business with another citizen. They can't stop that. I mean, there's no mechanism for them to get in between me and you. If I want to sell you a puppy, a glass of milk, a bale of hay, provide you with, rake your lawn for you, I'm providing a service. There's no mechanism for them to get in between. So that's where people really need to take solace in that if they were to be, you got to have a permit to do that. You just say, okay, but don't get worried about it. Don't get worried about it. Just say, yeah, okay, sure. I'll get a permit. Yeah. And I suppose you're going to sell me the permit, right? And once I get a permit from you, then I'm accountable to your rules. That would be dumb. But that's what we do. And it's what's known as, I was corrected on this today, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. All our lives, we've been programmed to ask permission. And who do you ask? Your neighbor? Oh yeah, the government. If you want to go to the bathroom in school, you got to ask permission. And when you get in high school, because you've learned how to evade teachers and stuff, you got to get a permission slip. If you want to miss school, you got to get a permission slip from your mom to take it in, to be excused, an excuse letter, right? but that's not, we don't have to do that. Like if I want to sell, I don't know, a lemonade stand out in front of the house, who is going to tell me what to do on private property? Who can do that? And under what authority do they have, what authority do they have to do that? If it violates my constitutional rights, I'm just not going to do it. And you know, they may say, well, you're breaking the law. And then the next thing I would say, well, then call a cop. Then. Why don't you call a cop? See if you can get me cuffed and stuffed over a lemonade stand. Try it. I mean, but that's what you have to do. You have to be willing to hit the press the test button and see what happens. What? What do you want? What do you want?
I got him.
Take care of him then.
Okay. She also was wondering about the tax situation.
Yeah, tax situation. I'm going to refer you over to Jill, and she can help you with that because I don't do the taxes. Jill does.
So we have been incorporated for a while. What I'm recalling, Susan, from when we were in Montana, which is lots of years ago, like 15, is we did have the Schedule F and we didn't have to have a tax number for the farm. I just had to track everything and then report it according to their form. We used H&R Block at that time and they had a book and they figured it all out. So that's what I know. Way back in the day, we didn't have to have a number for the farm or anything. It was just the Schedule F. But it's 15 years of IRS having fun. So just be sure you double check it with your accountant or whoever helps you with your taxes. But you should be able to file that if it's all still the same. And good luck to you. If you would, since you asked your question on the tribe page and a lot of other people were curious about.
All right, we're back on.
So,
All right, so you can see that.
so I hope if I didn't answer
Yeah.
your question, Susan, let me know.
Yeah, if you would get back to
Oh.
us on that. And
Yep,
Okay,
got it.
cool.
All right.
All right.
Actually, Brittany had another question for me.
Okay.
All right, Brittany, you wanted to know, technical issues there, about making your own baby food for the kids. Absolutely, 100%. Number one, there is no place in the store, even if they say organic, whose food is going to be as good as what you grow. I also felt like by making my own, the kids transitioned real easy to eating the real food that we were serving them, and they could just eat off our plates. So it worked out really good. Feeding your kids good food even when they're just little babies starting out is so absolutely essential. And good fats, because their little brains are still growing, and fat is what feeds their brain. Your brain is mostly fat. So even for us older folks, fat is absolutely essential. And for those little ones, good fat is critical to brain development. So absolutely make your own food. The other thing I would advocate for kids is keeping them grain-free. Their little bellies are not ready to digest grains, no matter what they say. With my last two, I followed the Weston Price guidelines, and I'll post those in the chat when I get done talking here. And by the way, Jesse, hang on and I'll get your question. I see it's not showing up. So, but the Weston Price protocol, where you start with an egg yolk, you start with fat stuff, liver. They can actually process liver at 6 months, and it's really good, rich fat that helps their brain develop and gives them all the nutrients that they need so that they have good, strong teeth, good facial structure, all the things that make for a good, healthy person. And it's not going to mess up their gut flora like grains will. They just simply don't have everything they need to process even rice cereal. Not really. So I'll post the Weston Price, their whole children health page, and there's an article in there on feeding babies, and Brittany, totally check it out. It worked really good with my last two. It's really amazing the difference it made with them. All my kids are great and healthy, but I just feel like those two have an edge because of just feeding them protein to start instead of grains to start, and just whole foods mashed up. Get a hand blender and you can make your own baby food. Save money, feed them what's on your plate, easing into it, of course, one veggie at a time, but it just goes quicker and faster, and it's way more seamless and way easier. So good luck, Brittany.
If I look different, I changed my shirt. Had a long sleeve on, it's too warm here. Put a short sleeve shirt on, so plus this one's cooler. All right, I'm ready.
Oh yeah. Brittany also wanted to know, do you plan to sell piglets or have you sold them in the past?
Oh, I've sold a lot of piglets in my day. If I have extras, I sell them. So we usually put it up on Baker's Green Acres page, what we have to sell. And if we don't, there's plenty of guys around that have them. So when you get ready, let me know.
Okay. Oh, and just a note on the tax thing, Robert Podbilski made a good point that you don't necessarily have to have your farm identified, but you can get a tax exemption if you do have a LLC or something that is tax identified, and you can get an exemption for your farm goods. And Tractor Supply even gives it to me on dog food, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So, small note on that. Okay.
All right.
Jesse had a question for you, pigs. Is there anything wrong with going with a larger pig pen than your size model of 100 by 300?
No.
I have approximately 50 pigs, and it seems like their appetites would appreciate larger areas to forage.
Yeah, I think that was intended to scale, so if you want to go, you can do whatever you want. It just seemed like 100 by 100. Well, it was a produce area that was 100 by 300. So that's what we had. That's what we used. And then I divided it in thirds. So it turned out to be that. But I didn't sit down and engineer it to be that. And I think what you're going to gain by going bigger paddock sizes is you'll have more duration. They can be in there a longer time. So 50 of them. I've had 50 in mine. No, I've had 30 in mine at 100 by 100. It still takes them a while to get everything. And we make them take everything, literally everything out of there before we move them. And it just makes it easier for me to plant. But yeah, I think you could do 3 300s. You could do 3 500s and then just scale up the number of animals. I think you'd start to lose it when the weeds started taking over and there was not enough pigs in there to keep it all completely vegetation free. So they've got to be able to do that in a period of time. And then, you want to get as many plantings in a summer as you can. And of course, towards the end of summer, you're going to use different things than you did at the beginning of summer, because the beginning in the spring when it's cold, some of the things that you would plant mid-summer will not germinate. So things that germinate well in the cold are rye, field peas, very good. And then once you get through that into midsummer, then your radishes, turnips, forage radishes, rye is all going to work really well. Corn will work really good. Corn is actually really good, open pollinated corn, because you may get a stalk that's only 4 feet high, but it's right next to another stalk that's 4 feet high. And you may have planted them just by broadcasting, and the thickness of the forage in there would just be really dense. And those corn stalks, you've ever taken a corn stalk and broken it off and chewed it, it's sweet, and the pigs will just go crazy for it. So you don't even really have to wait until it heads out before you turn your pigs in on it. You can really turn them in at any stage of development of everything, of really anything. You just have to be the judge of that.
Susan wondered about AI for her cows. If you know of anybody in her area,
I do.
and oops,
I got him in my phone. This is Susan and Kelva.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe we can message that to her.
Okay.
I mean, rather than give out their, but yeah, we know someone. And how did that process work?
The name of the business is Central Star. And the guy that I have, his name is Jim. And I don't think he'd mind me giving out his phone number because that's the business that he's in. So I'll give it to you. It's 989-488-8690. And a brief explanation of how that works is you're going to want to go to the vet. And I use Dallas Burrell, and he is, what's the name of the vet service?
Stony
Corners Vet Service. And you're going to want to get some Ludolase. And the smallest quantity that you can get is about $20. And then you take a hypo, a syringe. You put your cow someplace, where you can hold them or tie her off to something. And then you give her a shot. And then the next day you give her another shot. And then so many hours from that second shot, she will have cycled back in. And you tell Jim when you gave her the last shot, and you tell Jim what kind of a calf you want to have. You can't pick the sex on it. Well, maybe you can.
There's a timing thing with that.
I don't know about that. I didn't care about that so much. You tell him what kind of calf you want to have, and then he'll bring that with him. And he's just driving a car, and he's got a tank in there that's got nitrogen in it. It's called a semen tank. And then when she's in, she'll stand right there and he'll put his arm in right up to here, pull all the manure out, and then he'll load the semen in, while he has his hand in her rectum. Then he'll load the semen in through the vagina with a telescoping thing. and it goes, and they've got it down to a science. I would recommend using him, especially. Tell him I sent him. I sent you to him. Not that you'll get anything off, but he's a nice guy. Did a good job for us, and I think it's going to work out okay. I think I've got 3 pregnant cows out there right now. So, yeah, it worked good. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and it did work the first time, right? Susan's asking. It did work for us the first time, right?
We never did it before.
I know, but they caught the first time.
Well, I hope so.
Oh,
I mean, I
they're
haven't.
sure looking at.
Okay.
But yeah.
I mean, they're not complaining.
Yeah.
Like most.
What? Okay, you can just watch for heat cycles, right? But why would you use
Yeah,
the
you can,
Ludolase
but-
instead of just watching?
Yeah, you can, but then the problem is Jim has his regular route. He services the big dairies. Kelv is a little off the beaten path. So he will be able to tell you, okay, if you give her a shot Sunday at 1:00, I can be there, Tuesday at 4, and she should be just right in the middle of her cycle. So that's why you use this guy, because he's been doing it so long. He just instinctively knows, the hour span. And you say, well, it's a Holstein. He says, well, those usually take about 20% longer or something like that. The guy's on it. He's definitely on it.
Mhm.
So that's what I would do. And then you can actually blood test them a short time after that. But when he did mine, he said, no, I think it was perfect. I got him. So I just haven't had time to blood test them. If two of them take and one doesn't, or one does and two don't, then we'll just do them again. But my thing was I would like to have my calves in May or April. And the reason you want to do that is because June is when the grass starts coming in really thick, right? And if the cow calves right around then, not that the calf is going to be eating grass, but if the mom is out there just gorging on grass, she's going to have really good milk for her calf. And so that calf will get a real good start. That's why, spring is usually when in the wild, the young are born. There you go. So we always want to try and mimic nature if we can. So why not? Why not? And I know that you'd probably want to do one in May and then one 6 months later if you're only going to keep two cows, so you constantly have milk coming. I get that, and I think that's smart. I think that's smart to do that. And it would be some good data really to collect if you're a grass person like we are. How's that? Next.
All right. Eric wanted to know about what do pigs sell for? And I didn't get any more information about what he's
Well,
from him on that.
Mangalitsa pigs, they're a little bit more. For a while there, it was crazy. They wanted so much for them, and some people kind of still do, but I don't think they sell them for that. But we usually ask between, 100 and 150 in there, sort of. And it's a pretty fair deal, I think. And that's a 8-week-old weanling or weaner. And a weanling would be a pig that's just been kicked off its mother, and that's usually about 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Either we take them off or the mother kicks them off. And usually you can expect to get males that have been castrated. Those would be, a sterilized animal. If you're going to buy male pigs and they're not castrated, if you're going to eat them, I would say castrate them. You can do what you want, and you can listen to all kinds of different things on the internet about it. But, our experience, running a butcher shop for all these years, I'm not eating a pig that's intact. Just not going to do it. Some people say you can get these real nice kits off Amazon to test them. I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't just castrate them. If you have a boar, let's say, that you've used for many years, and you want to go through the trouble of castrating him, you can, but if his meat is tainted, what do you do then? You just have to live with it. I think it's probably better to
Give it to the neighbors.
turn it into dog food. I like my neighbors, though. So,
As long as you don't potluck with them.
yeah. There's a story there. They didn't ask that. Get to business here, woman.
Do you know if the little ice stays in the cow's system?
I have some, and I read the directions. And I honestly do not recall. Well, you're talking 9 months before any milk is going to start. Any milk production is going to start.
Is little ice just is it a synthetic hormone or a natural hormone?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I did read the directions on it. But the vet is a friend of mine, so I just said to him, "Can I get this stuff?" And he just handed it to me, and he said, "Use this much." But it's got those little tiny directions you can hardly read. But I did read it just to see, and I don't recall anything like that. And I'm cautious about that because at the time we were still milking her, so we had her inseminated while we were still milking her. And I don't think we ever stopped our milk production at all. But didn't you have that big gap in your, no, never mind. Just a joke.
Okay. Yeah, Susan, that'd be interesting to know on the tribe. Just for curiosity. Okay, Joshua, did you learn any new farming technology at the conference?
I would say no, because it was not a technologies conference. It was not a how-to farm or anything like that. This was all about sharing our experiences about, being abused by Department of Ag and the like, townships, health departments, and kind of an after brief on what worked and what didn't, what their authority was, what authority they don't have. And but it wasn't about farming it wasn't about farming techniques. So I don't think anything like that was even discussed. Oh yeah, well, I did hear quite a bit about food buying clubs, and I brought the thought of that home to where one of the problems is with small farmers, especially if you are a homesteader. You may have time to farm, you may have time to do your day job, but you don't have time to market your stuff. And if there were a food buying club, that it would be an easy drop off, and then the club could move that. That might be a nice thing for the community. It might be a nice thing for other farms around. So I'm actually having dinner with a couple guys Saturday night, and I'm going to see what they heard. They were at the show too. There was several people from around here that went, and see what they heard, see what they brought home that maybe we could implement around here. But yeah, I think that was about it. You, Jill, anything?
I did.
You did. Okay, well,
It's not new technology. This is as old as the hills.
you did it again.
But
Can't you?
sometimes how you just need a kick in the pants. There's something you really intend to do for a long, long time, and you just don't get around to it for lots of stupid little reasons. So I was going around to the vendors and found this. Sprouts are it's like a superfood because it's all of the energy and nutrition that seed has saved up for its new little plant, and you get it. It's all released right there. And I've been meaning to do this for a long, long time. And I saw this lid and said, it goes on a mason jar. There goes my excuses. And they had a packet of seeds right there. And it's really dumb for me to buy alfalfa and radish seeds, but they're all out in Mark Seeds someplace outside. And I don't feel like going and looking for them. That's the thing that holds me back. So overcoming things that hold you back from doing the good, healthy things you ought to do. Lehman's has this really cool lid, goes on a mason jar. I got seeds. They walked into the house right into my kitchen, and I have sprouts. They'll be ready to eat tomorrow. So that was my really cool new technology that I found from the conference. And we're going to have some darn good, healthy food. I mean, in January, we're going to be eating greens. So great technology. It's the stupid little things that just help you overcome that you pick up at conferences. And I picked up a really good idea, this is all a little aside, I guess, from the actual question. But a question was asked to the whole panel of speakers. What would you do differently if you started your farm over again? And the thing that everybody agreed on was that they would invest in skills instead of stuff.
Yeah.
Invest in skills instead of stuff. So if you're wondering, well, should I buy this or should I buy this? Invest in what you know, and it'll all come clear. You will do the thing. So those were my takeaways from the conference.
All right.
All right.
That wasn't what I said. I said I would go to MIT and then get a job working at Congress, is what I would have said, because I want to smell Nancy Pelosi's perfume.
Someone suggested that she probably wears Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
All right. Nathan is looking to get Scottish Highlands on his forest farm. Have you had any experience with these heifers? Any tips or advice? Thanks.
I know a guy that had them. That's about it. And I do know a guy that butchered some. And I have seen them in real life. The guy that had them got out of them. That's Bob Bernard. He had them.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that butchered them didn't let them out of the trailer because they had, these crazy horns on them. Well, you're asking me, so I'll tell you. Beef cattle are for beef. If you want to have cool looking animals for pets, then you can, but you're going to pay a lot more for Scottish Highland. And I don't think the quality of the beef is going to be any better than if you get a good, thrifty animal that does well on grass and put them out. So I would, if you were here, I'd say, what do you want them for? That's what I would say. Because I got convinced at one point in my career that I needed a kind of a specialty cow, and it was a low line, they called it. And so it was just this really little Angus bull. And I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Well, what do you want a little cow like that? I mean, he was small, so he couldn't breed the cows. He could only breed girls his size. And then after 2 years of growing the steers, they were little. So, and the guy that sold it to me, well, women like a smaller cut of meat. Oh, okay, that sounds good. So I can sell these to nothing but women. Anyway, we ate him. So I, if you really want them, go for it, and maybe we'll all learn something here. I prefer animals that are good and thrifty on grass, which means they do well on grass and they'll make decent rate of gains. If you've got to be buying feed to give them, then it's coming off your bottom line on those beef. It's better if you can feed them nothing but hay, and then in the summertime grass. This woman that I was talking to in Hawaii, they graze year round. Can you imagine that? She keeps 200 pairs, cow-calf pair operation, on 400 acres, and they never cut hay. They just graze. So they're just moving fences all year round. Can you imagine that? Your cattle are gaining every single day. And the gains that cattle make on grass are nothing to sneeze at. Some cows can gain 3 pounds per day on grass. And that's not unheard of. I think maybe they can do even better than that, depending on the forage. But just think, every day that clicks by and you have, 40 beef, 40 times 3, wow, we really, a pound of beef is, so you're making really good gains every day. So anything else?
Brian, this is Brian Bouchamp. Is 2 strands enough to keep pigs in?
I don't do it that way, Brian. I don't, because I'm a redundancy guy. I'm a belt and suspenders type guy. You notice when we interact, I've always got a pair of suspenders on as well as my belt to keep my pants up, just in case the suspenders fail. I got my belt. If the belt fails, my suspenders will hold it up. I usually have a Leatherman and a pocket knife. I carry a lighter and a wristwatch. So redundancy, I'm about redundancy. So I build my fences with woven wire, and then on the inside of that, I'll have a single strand of wire. If you have 2 strands, I'm not saying that won't keep them in, but if, something falls over it, or when you're in the house, I'm telling you, those pigs, they're organizing, they're doing things, they're figuring out ways to defeat that fence. You got to be smart. You be smarter than them. You got to have redundancy. So if you only have 2 strands, there's a good chance if they cover up the bottom strand, and the top strand's not going to do any good. So it'll hold them in for a while until it doesn't hold them in anymore. But I don't do it that way. So the answer is, yeah, it'll hold them until it doesn't hold them, and then you don't have a backup going. So there you go.
Yeah, because it held them here, but then we
then
also put them in a lot.
My neighbor's cows came over to meet with my cows, and they went right through the pig pasture, and I had 2 strands of electric there. Went right through it. And then my pig spilled out into his place. And his cows went over with my cows and went in with my cows, and then came back out and went through my electric fence there too. That was when I first got here. I don't talk to that neighbor anymore. Kind of a shame. Not because of that, but that didn't help. That didn't help.
Yeah. So at least have a good solid perimeter fence. And then if you subdivide with electric, at least they're not going to leave your property and go root up the neighbor's yard, which will suddenly double in value.
Right. Pigs can do a lot of damage. And if you're away, or even if you're away and mom's in the house and she's not watching, I always felt a little uneasy about that fencing system. And if your next question is going to be, what about temporary netting? I'm going to say no. Under no circumstances do you want temporary netting. I've met people who swear by it until they don't like it anymore. All right. I've done it twice, bought temporary netting, because the first time I had it, I had a goat get wrapped up in it. I heard this real funny noise, sounded like an alarm clock, came around the corner, and there's a goat wrapped up in it, and it's electric, and the electric pulses, and it was me not liking goats. I kind of let it go on for a little while and had a chuckle over it. But then I got them again to use them with pigs, and it was terrible. The pigs ate. There was an intermediate piece, and they would eat that out of it, and then they would get tangled up in it. And if one gets tangled and they panic, they'll take it for a ride, and they'll take all the pigs with them. So I don't believe in it. I don't like the way they look, and I don't like handling them. They're really cumbersome to handle. So anytime I do any subdividing of pastures, hardwired pastures is what I call them. If we've got woven wire, and then if I'm going to have cattle on them, I'll just put a strand of electric on top of that to keep them from leaning over, or electric barbed wire to keep them from leaning over. And I can keep anything in I want. And once they're built, they're built. They don't deteriorate as fast as any other fencing systems, and you can fix them up. You can put other pieces in, you can re-stretch them. The wire, I redid some fences that I first put up when I first got here, and I redid them, put in more fence posts, and the wire was pretty much the same color as when I put it up 15 years before. It takes a long time for that galvanized wire to really discolor and rust. So when you find that stuff like stapled to trees out in the woods that you can barely make it out, that is old stuff. So there you go.
All right. Georgia Trapper asked if you have ever raised rabbits, why or why not?
I got rabbits right now. And I did them before at our last place 16 years ago in Montana. And I had a really good thing going. And I really enjoyed them. We ate a lot of rabbit. But when we moved here, we didn't bring them with us, and we got going on other things here. So I never really got back into them. But I'd always thought that is a good way to go. And I got into this thing a little while ago where I started thinking, gee, what if I couldn't get feed? What if I couldn't get this? What if I couldn't get that? Kind of like a survivalist mindset. Rabbits will eat really just about anything green. You can feed them green branches, you can feed them grass, you can feed them We feed them bread. Of course, the pellets are really nice, and it's got everything in them. And so you can, and they're prolific breeders. I'm sure you know that, and they're easy to butcher. And I think they are the most efficient converter of carbohydrates to protein on the farm. I think that's the case. At least I read it in a book. So, yeah, I got them now, and I'm going to incorporate them into the garden area this summer. Wait till you see this. I mean, I'm going to really build a pretty cool thing. But my thought is, when we're out there weeding, and then we just leave a pile of weeds there. You've pulled all these weeds, done all this work, and then you just leave it right there. Well, it goes back to the earth, and it's compost, green manure, all that stuff. But I do a lot of composting anyway, so I don't really always feel like I'm overdoing it. But that pile of weeds could be a few pounds of rabbit meat. So if I had the rabbits out there, and then I could just do a bucket and then give it to them, I'd be killing two birds with one stone. I wouldn't feel like I'm just weeding. I'd feel like I'm feeding the rabbits. So that's my thought. And I like rabbit. I like to eat it. And everybody around here would like to eat it. And plus the kids like to play with them and stuff. The problem would be is if they got out of their pen when your seedlings were just coming up in the garden, that could be kind of bad. But, you know, that's my charge, is to make sure that doesn't happen. So I think rabbits are a great idea for the homestead. They don't make any noise. They produce some pretty nice, rich manure. The way I have them now, I had to move them in the barn for the winter, and under their cages, there's bedding falls through, and they manure and urinate on it. And that's just a really nice mix. It's going to be real helpful to my composting operation. And I would like to have more than I do. I have 2 bucks and 2 does right now. Anything else?
Yeah, I got one last question.
One last
from
question.
Haven. What's the average amount of milk from your Holstein grass-fed cows?
I haven't milked any Holstein grass-fed cows. I have one now, but when I got her, she was just, she was, you might remember from videos way back, she was the one that had that back leg that was knuckled under. Her hoof was knuckled under. And when we got her, she was a great heifer, but she had that knuckled under thing. And so the farm she came from, I think you know those guys, they didn't want her. You know, they called her out, and Joe was working there, so she got her for a song, I think. And she's a beautiful cow now, and her leg went back. It's a little swollen, but you wouldn't know it if you didn't know it. And I am gonna AI her, AI being artificial insemination. I'll be calling Jim myself. I got her and one other one that I'm gonna AI here, and they'll take it up on the other side. All right, so I did these ones. They're gonna be ready in May. If I were to, I don't know, I have to look at a calendar. I don't, but I want these ones to be in milk about the time I'm drying the other ones up. So I want to have 2 groups opposite each other in the calendar. So I don't know, but my Guernsey puts out about 4 gallons per day on grass.
Milking once a day.
Once a day, yeah. I'm a homestead, so you might be working more towards higher production if you were going to do a raw milk operation, which I highly recommend. Yeah.
Lone Star wanted to know if you had any hecklers at the talk.
Lone Star's always asking questions, makes me think he knows something. I did. Were you there, Lone Star? Could he have been there?
No.
How would he know
He'd
that?
have come and talked to you. He was just asking if there were any hecklers.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the type of operation somebody would heckle you, but I
He
did.
says he knows nothing.
Oh, okay. Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing. Yeah, I did. And this was awesome. All right. I was the second speaker. And I told the audience, approximately 300 people, of what I was going to brief them on. I was going to tell them who I am. I was going to tell them the struggle that we had with the state of Michigan and our pigs. And I was going to tell them the struggle we had with the Department of Agriculture. And then I was going to say, this is what we did, and this is what worked, and this is what didn't work. And I don't know exactly why I did this, but right off the bat, I said, we tried the lawyer thing. It didn't work. It just so happens that there was 2 lawyering outfits that had trade tables in the room. And as soon as I said it, I thought, oh boy. But I was there to tell the truth. I wasn't going to hold back just because there's lawyers there and they're trying to get the business of people who are getting beat up on by states and townships and health departments and stuff like that. So I said, no, the lawyer thing didn't work out. The lawyers that I had weren't good. They could have done better in retrospect. They seemed to be a little too cozy with our adversaries, and it didn't work out. I'm not saying it can't work out, but for us, it didn't work. And then I went into what did work. And I still maintain that. Not saying I will never have a lawyer. As a matter of fact, I talked to a lawyer today, but that's what I said. Well, then we had a panel discussion, and I was up on stage again. This is after lunch. I'm getting a little groggy. And it just so happens there was a question that was directed to me. So I had a microphone in my hand, and this lawyer lady way over on the side had a question. She's waving her hands. She wants to ask a question. And the moderator was Joel Salatin, and he was calling on people, yes. And then maybe he would run a microphone over to him if it was far away or something like that. Well, she comes toddling right up onto the stage and faces the crowd. And she says, well, I hear what Mark's saying about this Fifth Amendment and doing illegal stuff on your property, but if you get a regulator or a bureaucrat that has a bug under his saddle, he can ruin your day. So she basically comes up and blew my argument away. And she's a lawyer. I'm a nothing. And so I was like, I had a mic in my hand and I said, hey, wait a minute. I didn't say anything about doing illegal things on your property. I never advocated for human sacrifice and claiming the Fifth Amendment. I never did that. You can do things within the law, but you can't break the law. Department of Agriculture has a bunch of little rules that they make up, and then they try to back it up as law. And she says, well, we could talk about this at the brew pub after, and my firm will pick up the first round of beers, but I don't want to talk about it here. I said, well, if you don't want to talk about it here, I guess I rest my case. But I thought that was the point of the Rogue Food Conference, was to hammer this stuff out. And about then she kind of gave up the mic, and Joel kind of took the mic and went into well, we need to all get along and keep going in a safe direction and all that stuff. But afterwards, people came up and said, man, that was beautiful. Did you set that up? Because it was, she proved my point. Why are these lawyer people not respecting the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution? Why are they saying, yeah, the Fifth Amendment, but no, it's my Fifth Amendment, and it's not the Fifth Amendment, but it's the Fifth Amendment, period, right? Fifth Amendment, period. Now, they don't want that. The regulators don't want that, but they don't have the ability to project their force. We do. So it's going to be our way. For many years now, they've said to us, you will comply with our made-up rules. But now we've turned it and we're saying, no. You will comply with our Constitution. And oh, by the way, you took an oath. to abide by that Constitution, and that is a term of your employment. So pull your head out, get your act together, and we're going to hold you to it. And that was kind of the gist of this. You know, it's an offensive move that we're taking as farmers and other folks that were at the conference. 300 people, Lone Star, from all over the country that dropped what they were doing, paid money to get there, and then spent the weekend there. That's powerful. That's powerful. This isn't 300 people from Kentucky, 300 people from that town. No, they weren't from that town. We weren't from that town. We drove 8 hours to be there. And the next one will be far more powerful. It's going to have to be a bigger venue. And, when you do something like this, you have no idea what the ramifications are going to be 10, a year from now, 10 years from now. And that reminds me, I know we're getting late on time, but I got an email from Joel Salatin today. And it wasn't just to me, but it was to, the cadre that was there, the speakers and the administrators and stuff. But I would be happy to read this to you, what he said. And this is how he felt about this. And I've read this and I thought it through. Would he mind if people saw this? I don't think so. Joel Salatin is the editor of the Stockman Grass Farmer. So he's very careful what he puts in writing, and I kind of sense that the tone of this. So here you go. It says, "Hi all. Since John made this so easy to respond all, that's what I'm doing. First, thank you, John, for being a stellar stage manager. I felt not a single hiccup in the day, and your ending performance could be both Social Studies 101 and Comedy Night Central. Wow, what a closer." And that is... he's talking about John Moody. John Moody's been around for a long time, but he really came into it this time. I'm not kidding you. He was top-notch speaker right there. Top-notch. He was the last guy that spoke too. Okay. Nitty, Tyler, Dennis, and Mark. My goodness, we had a day. Those were the speakers. I've described it to people like a day of drinking of pure oxygen for liberty. My, what an encouraging, affirming, empowering day. My April Meadow talk in Stockman Grass Farmer will feature the Rogue Food Conference. I wrote it today. Okay, so we can all look for that. It should be good. I'm gonna definitely get it. You all came prepared with heart and soul. If nobody cried that day, they have a heart of stone. I didn't want it to end, and I don't think anyone else did either. Dennis, we're all trusting you have a good outcome April 15th and looking forward to hearing what happens. Please keep us posted. And this is the part you like right here. Mark, you said it well. We are now entering offense. It's time. I'm not sure any of us can imagine right now what a long-range impact of the day's investment will be. I can't think of a more enjoyable and satisfying investment I've made recently. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Till we meet again. Blessings, Joel. Joel Salatin, Polyface Farm. So that's pretty cool. I mean, for somebody that's engaging in the career field that I am right now, to get an email like that, this one will go on a hard drive. I'll keep that one, When I took the stage, I pulled a book out of my briefcase full of blues, and it was a book of his that I bought 16 years ago. And I've gone through it twice and referred back to it a couple of times. If you haven't, I think Jill put it in the tribe. It was a TED Talk by Joel Salatin.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend that you do, because that talk, I think, prepared me for the conference. It made me very proud of my work here, of what I've accomplished, and it amped me up to continue and continue to embrace it and be proud of it and just keep pressing on through anything that comes down. And along with that, I kind of feel like we have a responsibility, if we've been given the gift of being able to understand how all this works, not that I understand it all, but it's gone okay. I feel confident that I would definitely want to walk somebody around and show it to them. I think I have a responsibility to share that with people who also want to have that experience and do it cleanly and safely and with good husbandry and stuff like that. So that's what this hour and a half or 2 hours is on Wednesday night. We share this, and honestly, it started because I get so many phone calls and I really can't say these things over and over to one person. So if we do this, it goes out to many people. What, 38,000 people right now? That's a chunk of people. Oh, that measures in thousands up there. That little thing. No, but seriously, the other day at that conference, you know, I've spoken in front of a couple of crowds, but I haven't done it in a long time. And so I wasn't prepared for what happens when you bounce up on that stage, shake the hand of the guy that's introducing you. You bounce up there, you turn around, and you have all these faces looking at you. Like, you got something to give us, right? And it shocked me for a second. It really did. Like, all of a sudden my hands wouldn't move the way I wanted them to, and I felt real self-conscious and everything. And what it is your systems get shocked by all the energy that's coming at you. But then as you start to get into it, you feed on it and you can pour more out to the crowd. And I would say it was one of the better experiences that I've had in public speaking, really. When it was my time, when my hour was up and it was my time to sit down, I kind of felt, oh, Lone Star. Thank you, Lone Star. Thank you. That's really nice of you to do that. I hope we get to meet someday. Well, we've come to the end. It's 1 hour and 27 minutes, 52 seconds. This is also a good experience for me too, when I get to sit down and talk with you all and have all those people out there that are interested in this. I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm looking forward to when the technology comes in, that people can just pop in, your face comes in, you ask your question, and then, you know, we get to converse and you don't have to type. I'm looking forward to that time. It's coming. That's a Zoom call right now, and it costs money to do that. But I'm sure as this thing evolves, that will come to where you just be able to pop in. I would think we could do it with voices, you know, just your voice in, I would think, but who knows? Anyway, I'm going to call it quits for tonight. Hang with it this week. Get to work. Remember, anyone can farm. Thanks.